Hey Harmony House, how's it going? Get comfy because it is chapter book story time. We are on chapter 17 of the Magic Misfits, the second story. So before we get started, quick recap. We kind of left on a bit of a cliffhanger in our last chapter, which kind of means like something exciting was happening. We were about to find something out, and then it stopped. We didn't get to find it out. And what we were finding out was what this reward is that was hidden in the basement of the rear wing of the Grand Oak Resort. So, backing up a little bit, the Misfits, the whole group, went to the Grand Oak Resort to investigate a little bit. They're trying to learn more about the Emerald Ring, and which is the Mr. Dante Vernon's old magic club when he was a kid. And they're trying to learn more about them and more about the fire that occurred in the rear wing of the hotel when they were kids. So they found out that the Emerald Ring used to meet up in this rear wing of the hotel, the Grand Oak Resort. So the building's been closed for a long time, but they were able to get in. They found the old club room with posters of magicians on the walls, and they found all these symbols all over the walls and the floor from cards, from a regular deck of cards, like hearts, clubs, spades, diamonds, but also symbols from tarot cards, which is a type of card that's used in magic sometimes. And they also found this message, something about finding a reward where, what was it? Finding a reward where action meets thought. Yeah, that's what it was. And so this led them down into the basement of the rear wing. So they went down there and they got quite a fright, right? Someone had set up a booby trap down there so basically if you stepped over this wire that they'd put across the floor, it basically triggered a fake skeleton that was on other wires to kind of look like it was walking around, right? So that was pretty scary, but they were all safe, they were all fine, and figured out very quickly that it was just a trick, it wasn't real. But then after that, they were looking around, trying to figure out what is it down here that we're supposed to find. And lo and behold, they found more of those symbols from tarot cards on the floor, and they figured out that thought represents one of those symbols represents thought. And one of those symbols represents action. So where action meets thought is where those two symbols were together. So they started looking around. I think it was a sword. They needed a sword and what was it? A stone marked with both a wand and a sword. That's what it was. So they need to find one with both a wand and a sword. And then Layla knelt by a stone where the image of the wooden wand crossed the image of a gleaming sword. I found it! And then that's where we left. So she found the wand and the sword, which they think is the answer to this riddle. But what's going to be there is the question. Is the reward going to be there? What's the reward? I don't know. So let's dive in. Chapter 17. The others crowded around as Layla shoved her fingers into a small space along one edge. She grunted as she lifted the corner of the stone. It slipped out of place, revealing a shallow hole just below. "Whoa," Carter exclaimed. Ridley's jaw dropped in shock. Theo shouted, "Yes!" Ollie and Izzy locked elbows and did a quick spin around each other. "Reward," Layla whispered. Ridley shone the flashlight into the hole. A small wooden box sat snugly beside a metal box. So a small wooden box sat snugly beside a metal box. Layla reached in and pulled them both out. She wasn't thinking about reward in the same way as the twins. She was hoping to find what she'd come in here for, answers to her questions about who her father and his friends used to be. So while Ollie and Izzy are thinking reward is in, gold, jewels, treasure, what is the reward to Layla? Oh, Noodles, get out of the camera, please. What is the reward to Layla? It's not treasure that she can hold, right? It's answers to her questions. She wants to learn more about her dad and his friends and who they used to be as part of this emerald ring. As she placed the wooden box on the floor beside her, Carter said, "It kind of looks like my puzzle box, the one with my father's initials." "This one has initials too," said Theo. "A-I-S." "Who is A-I-S?" asked Carter. "Maybe the same person whose initials were carved into the wall upstairs," said Ridley. "Or at least one of them, A." "Weird," said Layla. "I wonder what's inside this thing." She tried to open it, but the lid wouldn't budge. So interesting. So they're looking at one of these boxes, and Carter said, "That looks familiar. That looks like the puzzle box that I have." So if you recall from our last book, what's Carter's most prized possession? Do you remember that he always carried around with him? It was the last thing that he has left of his parents, which was this box that has his dad's initials on it. And now they're finding a similar box that also has initials on it. Well, we do know that Carter's dad was a part of the Emerald Ring as a kid, right? He was friends with Mr. Dante Vernon when they were kids. So I don't know, maybe the two boxes are related. What do you think? But in any case, it's not opening. So let's keep reading. "I could never figure out how to open my dad's box either," Carter explained. "Maybe all the members of the ring had impossible boxes like this," Theo suggested. "Try the metal one instead," Ridley insisted. To Layla's surprise and delight, the metal lid squeaked open. She reached in and pulled out a folded, yellowing piece of paper. She opened it up and showed the others. Rough black lines squiggled around the pages. Several X's were marked on the lines, and beside each X were strange letters. Rough black lines squiggled around the page, X's marked on the lines, strange letters next to the X's. What does this sound like to you? What do you think? Well, it shows us a picture of it. Can you see it okay? What does that look like? What do you think, Noodles? She says, "It looks like a treasure map." Let's find out. "It looks like a map, except all weird," said Layla. "A map of what, though?" Ridley asked. As the others pored over the map, Layla noticed Carter examining the wooden puzzle box. It was so like his own, the one which once belonged to his father. He slipped it into his satchel for safekeeping. "Maybe the letters are another riddle," Theo suggested. "Or a cipher," said Ridley. She reached into her wheelchair's secret compartment and retrieved the coin that had fallen out of the air at the magic shop. Wait, rewind. Do you remember this coin? It was from the very beginning of this book. They were all in the magic shop, in Mr. Vernon's magic shop, watching the shop for Mr. Vernon while he went to go get, I think it was his invisible ink from upstairs. And a coin just dropped from seemingly nowhere, just from the ceiling. And they picked it up. And it wasn't like a regular quarter or penny, right? It had letters on it, and which Ridley was able to tell us was a cipher, which, if you remember, we talked about how a cipher is kind of like a code, like another language kind of a thing to send secret messages. And Ridley has hung on to that coin this whole time. Do you think that they'll be able to use it to solve this map? Let's find out. She reached into her wheelchair's secret compartment and retrieved the coin that had fallen out of the air at the magic shop. She examined it. 2 rings, one inside the other. Each contained all the letters of the alphabet. Every letter in the inner ring matched up with a letter in the outer ring. And here's what we can use to decode it. We just switch out the letters for their corresponding counterparts. Whoa, said Carter. This is crazy. It's simpler than it looks. Ridley produced a pencil from her wheelchair's arm and started decoding. Check this out. She showed the others her work. TLI equals GOR. So she's looking at this coin. How do I explain this? And it's like every letter equals another letter. So let's say A actually equals B and B actually equals C. So every place on this code where you see an A, you change it to a B. And every place where you see a B, you change it to a C. Does that kind of make sense? It would be easier if I could write it down and show you, but basically they're translating this code. They're changing it from regular ABCs into this ciphered version to basically be able to read what it says. So TLI actually equals GOR, and ENH actually equals VMS. It still makes no sense, Theo said with a sigh. Maybe they're just initials, said Ollie. GOR, said Izzy. Grand Oak Resort? Ridley laughed. Ollie, Izzy, you're geniuses. Thanks, said Ollie. Most people compliment our smiles, so it's nice to hear that you like our brains, too. Ridley rolled her eyes. I won't go that far. But I was right to ask everyone to study Morse code. See? Secret clubs use secret codes. Yes, friends, Ridley was right. And the cipher that the Magic Misfits discovered was a substitution cipher called Atbash. This cipher has a long history. It's been used by secret clubs and societies all around the world. Maybe you've already encountered the cipher in this very book. I wonder where. If you're ever feeling secretive, you might try using Atbash to send encrypted messages to people you know. People like your little brother or sister, or maybe your mom or dad or teacher. Who knows? They might be clever enough to figure it out all by themselves. That was a little message from the author. So then it is a map, said Carter, pointing at the page. He placed his finger on one of the X's and traced the line to the next X. Glancing at the cipher, he said, the Grand Oak Resort, VMS. After a second, he cried out, Vernon's Magic Shop. Then he scowled. But these lines don't look anything like the roads around mineral wells. Layla pointed to the corner of the map. What's this jumble of letters say? Can I see the cipher coin so I can decode it? Quickly, she replaced the coded letters with the real ones. Her eyes went wide with surprise. They're not roads after all. They're... She read the words, bootlegging tunnels. What are bootlegging tunnels? Asked Carter. Oh, I know, Ridley spoke up. Of course you do, Theo teased. Ridley scowled at him but continued. Back during the era of Prohibition, the production, transportation, and sale of alcohol was a federal crime. So smugglers, called bootleggers, had to do it in secret. Folks skirted the law by serving alcohol to customers in secret clubs called speakeasies. A secret club like ours? Asked Izzy. Not exactly, Theo said. Ridley went on. To get the cases of alcohol inside these speakeasies without the authorities noticing, oftentimes the bootleggers would dig secret passages connecting the sites with an intricate tunnel system. Secret passages, Carter considered. Like the bookcase at the back of the magic shop. Hey, I wonder if Mr. Vernon's place was once an old speakeasy. Remember what Papa said? It used to be a jazz club, Layla said. There must be an entrance to the tunnel system here too, Theo surmised. GOR, Grand Oak Resort, right? Layla nodded. She refolded the map and handed it to Carter, who tucked it into his satchel. This feels important. Let's look around. Carter, take your flashlight to that side of the basement, and Ridley can use her secret fire finger to illuminate this side. Be careful not to set off any more booby traps this time, Ridley winked. So they've been able to kind of solve this map, and they've discovered that these X's with these random letters, once they decode them using the cipher, are actually the initials of places in town, specifically GOR for Grand Oak Resort, and VMS for Vernon's Magic Shop. But they realized that the lines between them, these aren't roads in town. So they decoded another part of the map that told them that these were not roads, they're tunnels. Tunnels under the ground, connecting different places in town. So they know one of these tunnels is in the Grand Oak Resort, so now they're looking around to see if they can find the entrance to the tunnel. The group split in two and started to explore. Soon Carter's flashlight beam settled on a tall, rusted door embedded in the wall behind the staircase. This must be it. He shoved his shoulder against the door, but it wouldn't budge. There's a keyhole, said Ridley. What's that strange emblem marked just above it? Since Layla was the lock expert, she leaned close to the hole and examined it. When she saw the emblem, her body went numb. It was the same exact shape as the design on the key she was wearing around her neck. So Layla's been carrying this key around with her. It's the key that was left with her as a baby when she was left at the orphanage. And it's also the same key that Sandra said was going to become very important when she used her psychic ability to kind of like read Layla. So Layla's looking at this keyhole and she sees the same symbol above the lock as the symbol on her key. So do you think her key's going to unlock it? Let's find out. She knew what she had to do, but she'd never told the others about the key. Would her friends be mad at her for keeping it to herself? Would she be mad at herself for finally revealing one of her most precious secrets? The one that always reminded her where she'd come from? She reached into her shirt, removed the key, and showed it to the Misfits. They all gasped. Where'd you get that? Asked Carter. I've had it ever since I can remember. Someone left it in my bassinet on the steps of Mother Margaret's home. I've never told anyone, not even Papa or Dad, said Layla, her stomach fluttering as it filled with 100 butterflies. She waited for their responses, for Ridley to scowl at her, for Theo to look hurt that she'd never shown him before. Instead, they rallied around her, giving her a hug. Thank you for telling us, Carter said. Oh, so she was so worried that her friends would be upset that she kept it a secret. But were they? No, they supported her, they love her, and they appreciate that she feels comfortable and confident enough to share it with them now. Now see if it fits, said Ridley, her voice hushed with anticipation. I did the wrong voice. Now see if it fits, said Ridley, her voice hushed with anticipation. Had Layla been worried all this time for nothing? The others looked over her shoulders as she inserted the key into the hole. It fit perfectly. She tried to give it a turn, but the key wouldn't budge. Her disappointment felt like the shock of a pick against a block of solid ice. Wounded, she couldn't keep her voice from wavering. I really thought that would work. Oh man, so the key fit, but it doesn't turn. Ridley smacked her arm lightly. Since when has a tough lock ever stopped Layla Vernon? Trying to hide her frustration, Layla reached into her pockets and removed her lucky lockpicks. She fiddled with them at the rusted door, turning and spinning and snagging at the impossible contraption inside, but it was no use. This lock appeared to be one of the most sophisticated she'd ever encountered. If I keep it up, she said, I might damage my tools, and then I'd have to rethink my plans for the show tomorrow. Speaking of which, said Ridley, didn't you agree to practice with your dad for the performance tomorrow? Layla looked at her watch. Oh no, I'm going to be late. And I'm about ready to be out of this basement, Carter said. "Shall we all head back?" Everyone agreed they'd had enough excitement for one day. They could come back and solve the mystery of the bootlegging doors soon. As she climbed the stairs, Layla remembered what Sandra had told her at dinner the other night. The psychic reading felt like a prophecy now. This key will become important in the coming days. Keep it close. Feeling suddenly woozy, she grasped at the wall to keep from falling backward. And that's the end of the chapter. That's an odd place to end the chapter. Well, the key didn't work. It fit perfectly, the symbols matched, but the key wouldn't turn, and Layla wasn't able to unlock it using her lucky lockpicks either. And then they all had to go home. It was time. Layla has to go practice for her performance that she's going to be doing. If you remember, she's the opening act for Sandra at the Grand Oak Resort. But Layla has a lot on her mind. She's thinking about this key and the prophecy that Sandra had told her about how the key is going to become important. And I guess it made her feel a little woozy. But we'll continue next time with chapter 18 and see if we can get any more answers. This is very interesting, though. There's a lot going on in this story, but I'm excited to see what these tunnels are about. I'm excited to hear about Layla's performance, because I know she's very excited about that. So we'll read more next time. All right, I'll see you then. Bye, everybody.